So the Marvel Secret Lair drops have finally arrived. They'll be available on the 4th. And yeah, I'm looking at Storm Force of Nature here. So I've got a whole deck built around it. There is a few pitfalls to be aware of with this deck. So yeah, definitely pay attention and let's see what we can do with it. So kicking things off with the commander, we've got Storm Force of Nature. It's 1 green, blue and a red. So it's a teamer commander. And it's a legendary creature mutant hero, and they are a 3/4. It has flying and vigilance, and it also says Ceaseless Tempest. Whenever a storm deals combat damage to a player, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn has Storm. So Storm is when you cast a spell, you copy it for each spell that has been cast before it this turn, and then you may choose new targets for those copies. A couple of things to be aware of with this commander. Absolutely fantastic thing is just, yeah, cast any card, it gets Storm. Absolutely fantastic, but there's a few steps to jump through first. So first off, we've got to do a storm count before we go to combat, or before we deal combat damage specifically, I should say. So yeah, we've got to get our storm count up, and we've then got to hit combat damage to a player, not combat damage to a creature or anything like that, has to be a player. And then once that is done, then we can cast something for storm and go off and do the crazy shenanigans. So there is a few hoops to jump through. So Storm herself is a very strong card. She is going to be the target of removal. I imagine she might not be quite kill on sight at your pods, but she is definitely going to draw the eye of the table, let's say. So yeah, I'm going to go down a spell slinging route because that seems to be the most consistent way in my mind of being able to get our storm count up, get her through for damage, and then also have a payoff for everything that we want to do. And yeah, let's break this deck down. So here we have the deck in its entirety. I am running 17 creatures, 21 sorceries, 20 instants, 5 artifacts, and 36 lands. Yeah, one of the things that I alluded to earlier is this deck can be quite mana intensive. I want to make sure I've got enough mana of each colours. Yeah, I want to make sure I'm cycling through my deck so I'm constantly drawing cards, and I'm doing this by casting lots and lots of cantrips because that's going to enable me to get my storm count up, also while drawing through my deck to get what I need to get so I can cast storm, go to combat, deal that combat damage safely, protect my then win con, and cast it. So yeah, let's break down how we're doing all of that. So the way this deck is going to function, it's going to function off as casting spells. So we want to make sure we are constantly casting spells and having payoffs for all of that, even if we don't have Storm herself out. So creature threats, we've got Electrostatic Infantry, Sprite Dragon, and Haughty Djinn. You could go down the route of using like Gutter Snipes and things like that, but personally in my experience, it just makes you too much of a target too quickly, and you have to build up a big board state before you can start storming off. Yeah? So we want to just get some little creatures out that get bigger the more we do our thing. And on top of that, to give us plenty of protection, we're going to use Third Path Icon class. We're going to use Young Pyromancer, Murmuring Mystic, and Taran Sky Summoner. So whenever we're casting spells, we're making more bodies. Yeah, we're then going to be able to use those bodies to protect ourselves, so we've got plenty of blockers, but also potentially swing out and deal some damage to our opponents until we're ready to get Storm on the battlefield and kill people. Because we're wanting to get that Storm count high before we deal combat damage with Storm herself, we need to make sure we've got plenty of mana to be able to do that. So we've got 19 pieces of ramp in this deck. We've got Soulwing, Strike It Rich, Arcane Signet, Coppermere, Farseek, Ironmere, we've got Manamorphose, we've got Nature's Law, Ornithopter Paradise, Rampant Growth, Runaway Steam Kit, Silvermere, we've got all the talismans, we've got 3 visits, we've got the Alloy Mere, we've got Bergie and Storm Kiln Artist. All fantastic cards that give us some ramp and also mana advantage whenever we're casting and doing things to make sure we can consistently keep going. Yeah, so we've got our land ramp with Farseek, Rampant Growth, 3 visits. Yeah, we want to make sure, we've got Nature's Law as well, that we can find the specific colours we need. Yeah, all of these cards allow us to do that because this is Plains, Island, Swamp on Mountain card. Nature's Law is a forest card, but obviously we've got dual type lands. Rampant Growth is any 2 basics, so we can colour fix. And then 3 visits is a forest card once again, but we've got dual type lands in our deck. We've also got all the Meres, which are our ways of having creatures for early game blockers and an early game presence on the battlefield, while we're also getting mana up. We've also got the Ornithopter Paradise because that's 1 mana of any colour. We're running Strike It Rich, so we can spend a red, create a treasure token, and then we can potentially use that treasure token to then cast a blue spell that costs 1 mana, so on and so forth. So we can constantly churn through, always have the mana we need to be able to cast what we want. And also, one of our win cons is Nexus of Fate, so we need to make sure we can get to 7 mana pretty consistently. Bergie, God of Storytelling, and Stormkiln Artist are going to allow us to keep that engine going as well, because whenever we cast a spell, we add a red mana. Whenever we cast a spell, we're going to make a treasure token. Also remember that Stormkiln Artist gets bigger for each artifact you control. So yeah, once we go off with our storm count, whenever you cast or copy spell, Magecraft will trigger. We're going to make a whole bunch of copies of the spell, which are going to make a whole bunch of treasures for Stormkiln, making them massive and also giving us a boatload of mana. So let's quickly talk card draw within this deck. So besides everything being a cantrip in itself and an instance or sorceries for the storm count, we are running some good options with Brainstorm, Consider, Faithless Lucine, Opt, Portent, Preordained, Serum Visions, Thimble Flip, Lost on the Range, and Archmage Emeritus. These are all pretty self-explanatory. I just want to take a moment to talk about Thimble Flip, Lost on the Range because of its plot ability. You may plot non-land cards from the top of your library. The top card of your library has plot, and plot cost is equal to its mana cost. So we can now look at the top card of our library at any time. Also bear in mind, Thimble Flip, Lost on the Range has Ward 2, so it's got built-in defense. Yeah, we can look at the top card of our library. If we don't want to storm off straight away, we can start to plot these cards. Take them from the top of our library, plot them, plot them, plot them. And then eventually we get to the point where we go, okay, right, I want to cast Storm now, and then I can cast all those plotted cards on the later turn for free once Storm's on the battlefield, you know, giving her haste, getting the Storm count up, deal that combat damage, making her unblockable, and then boom, cast the payoff from my hand with any other protection spells that I've got available in my hand, safe that our opponents can't see. So yeah, Thimble Flip the Lot on the range, casting cards for plotted, like, it's going to be crazy in this deck. Just so much value. So I mentioned haste and protection then. So how are we giving it haste? Crimson Wisp and Expedite, yeah? We could go with Lightning Greaves, Swiftfoot Boots, but we want to draw more cards. We want to get our storm count up for as little mana as possible. Crimson Wisp, Expedite, it's 1 red mana, cycles through our deck, gets our storm count up, gives a haste so we can get in and then cast a payoff. Awesome stuff. And then for protection, we've got Overmaster, and we've got Veil of Summer, and then we've got Untimely Malfunction. Yeah? So Overmaster, the next instance sorcery spell you cast this turn can't be countered. So before we deal combat damage, yeah, we cast this, it cycles, we draw a card, and then once our combat damage goes through, and we get to our second main phase, the next instance sorcery spell we cast has the Storm. Yeah, so you need to make sure you cast this before you deal your combat damage. Same with Veil of Summer. Don't worry if you don't get that first line. Draw a card if your opponent casts a blue or black spell this turn. You know, all you're really focused on is that fact that your spells can't be countered this turn. Yeah, so if you draw a card, it's great. If you don't draw a card, don't worry about it. You want to give your spells uncounterable. Yeah, and then we've got Untimely Malfunction, so we can change the target of a spell or an ability with a single target. So if anybody tries to target our stuff with counter spells, stuff like that, we can then redirect them to something else. So now we've got haste, we've got protection, and we've got our storm count up. Let's make sure Storm can get through and deal that combat damage. So we're using Distortion Strike, Enter the Enigma, Shadow Rift, and Slip Through Space. All of these cards allow our commander to not be blocked, yeah, so we can make sure we get through. They also will draw a card. Distortion Strike doesn't draw a card, but it has rebound, so we can cast it twice, yeah? So this is a fantastic way of making sure even if somebody has like a flying blocker that can jump it, we don't need trample, we can just get through as unblockable, easy peasy. Yeah. Next up after that is removal to make sure things aren't getting in our way. So we're running good old Lightning Bolt, Nature's Claim, Pungify, Rapid Hybridization. We've got a Braid. We're running Grape Shot. This can be used as removal, but we can also be used as a win con if our storm count is high enough and our opponents are low enough. We've got Untimely Malfunction as well to destroy artifacts and target creatures can't block this turn. We've got Beast Within and we've got Chaos Warp. Yeah, so plenty of ways to get stuff out of our way. Yeah, to make sure we can hit with that damage to then be able to go off with our storm count. So how are we winning? Well, we're using Nexus of Fate, Jessica's Will, Grape Shot, and Brain Freeze. Just bear in mind, Brain Freeze and Grape Shot both have Storm themselves, but Storm will have essentially give those cards Storm, Storm, just like cards can have Cascade, Cascade. That's how it works. So yeah, don't question it, just enjoy it and have double the triggers. So Jessica's Will and Nexus of Fate, yeah, they don't need a massive storm count to be super value. Yeah, you're going to have your commander on the battlefield, so even if your storm count is only at 3 and you cast Jessica's Will, copying it 3 times, that's 4 instances of mana from somebody's target player's hand, you know, and then 3 cards 4 times from the top of your library that you may play them this turn. Yeah, it generates you a bunch of mana, it generates a bunch of card advantage, so then you can set up to be able to do what you need to do. Yeah, same with Nexus of Fate. If your storm count's only 2 and then you get Nexus of Fate off, that's 3 extra turns. Yeah, that's more than enough you need to start closing out the game and put your advantage so far ahead of your opponents that you can start to win. So I just want to take a second to talk about tutors now. I'm running Mystical Tutor, Personal Tutor, Merchant Scroll, and Solve the Equation. This is because this deck needs us to have the right cards in hand at the right point. There's no point in getting Storm on the battlefield, dealing combat damage, if you then don't have a payoff. Yeah, you want to make sure that you can use your Mystical Tutor to get whatever card you want on the top of your library, let's say, cast something like a Slip Through Space so you can give your commander unblockable, draw that card you've just tutored, go in, deal combat damage. Now your Storm count is at least 2, boom, you can cast your Nexus of Fate, getting 3 extra turns. Yeah, absolutely fantastic way of doing it. You can then rinse and repeat this because you can use another tutor to go get your Blessed Respite to put everything back in your library. Yeah, so you can constantly draw back through and get what you need. Yeah. Tutors are very strong, don't get me wrong. If you don't want to run these, I suggest you either run more card draw, or you could go down the route of adding more protection because your commander might need to be on the battlefield longer, so you run things like counter spells in this place. Just before we go on to the next section, guys, just want to say thank you for making it this far into the video and supporting the content. If you could take now a moment to just hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, that would be absolutely fantastic. It would really help me out. And yeah, continue to the next section. So once we've cast all these spells and we're starting to cycle through our deck and we're doing our thing, all those spells are now in our graveyards. We want to make sure we can get them back so we can keep cycling through and doing our thing. So we're going to use Blessed Respite, Gaia's Blessing, Clear the Mind, and Past in Flames to make sure we can cast those cards out of our graveyard or just put them back into our library to repeat this process over and over again. That way, if you get stung by any nasty mill or anything like that your opponent's doing, you can always get that stuff back, and it's not so much of a problem. All right, let's take a second to talk lands. I'm running all of the pathways. I'm running all the Pain lands. I've got the Scry lands. I've got the Battlebond lands. I've got the Surveil lands. I've got the Slow lands, I believe, in here as well as the check lands. Yeah, you could save a lot of money probably on this deck just by getting rid of the Battlebond lands and the Surveil lands. You know, they are quite pricey at the minute. That could save you anywhere between $50 and $70. I'm also running Rogue's Passage as well, so we can give our commander unblockable. But yeah, just play the best lands you can play for your deck, because obviously you want to make sure you can consistently do what you need to do and have all the mana available at the right colours. We are running a 3-colour deck after all. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. Once again, 36 lands. We want to make sure we're hitting all of our land drops all the way up until turn 4 at the very least to get our commander out. Hopefully with obviously casting instant sorceries that can draw cards consistently, we're going to be able to hit our land drops from turn 5 to 7, enable us to cast that Nexus of Fate from that point onwards. So yeah, 36 lands, solid. So as always, I like to take a good solid look at the mana curve. Yeah, you can see we are running loads of 1s, 2-drops. Yeah, most of them being instants and sorceries, and only very few permanents. Yeah, we are then running a bunch of 3-drops, 4-drops, and then the only other 7-drops we have is Nexus of Fate. So besides that, our highest cost is a 4-drop, using something like Past in Flames, Tower and Sky Summoner, all of these types of cards along with our commander that are our highest cost. We want to make sure we can at least double, triple spell on every turn, you know, if not more, especially when we're considering we want to be able to double, triple spell and still cast our Nexus of Fate in the late game. Yeah, we've got plenty of coverage on all of our mana. Yeah, we're going to have no problem in casting all of our spells when we draw them. And yeah, that's it. Absolutely fantastic. So this deck comes with a bit of a warning, yeah, and that is purely because you are going to dominate the playtime at your pod. Yeah, every time you cast a spell, it's going to cantrip, you draw a card. That means you've got to reevaluate, read a new card in your hand, cast another spell, draw another card. This has not taken into account the fact that you might have Archmage Emeritus on the battlefield, so you're drawing an extra card. Stormkiln Artist, you know, Burgi, you know, you're making treasure tokens, you then got to track floated mana. If you've then got some of your token generators out on the battlefield as well, you're going wide at the same time. So you've got to be consistently aware of this big board state that you are creating. And because of the way that I have built this deck to consistently do that, it's going to happen a lot. So most of your turns are going to be quite dominant to your opponent's turns on the table. I want to take a moment now to talk about some other cards that I really did consider for this deck. That is Case of the Ransacked Lab. This obviously reduces the cost of your instants and sorcery spells. You're quite easily going to cast 4 of them in a turn, so you're going to solve the case quite easily. And then it's whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, you draw a card. So it just enables you to have more and more card draw while making your spells cheaper. Underworld Breach is another way of being able to get stuff out of your graveyard and cast stuff from your graveyard over and over again. Lightning Greaves, Swiftfoot Boots, if you feel like you need that extra protection for your commander because it's sitting on the battlefield for 2 or 3 turns before you actually get to storm off, yeah, these could be an absolutely fantastic include. Phyrexian Altar. This is a pricey card, don't get me wrong, but with the amount of tokens that you can generate from casting all your spells from your Talrand, your Memory Mystic, you know, all that type of stuff, you can essentially then sack them to your Phyrexian Altar to make 1 mana of any colour to then be able to cast your bigger spells. And obviously we've got a Spellseeker as another tutor, and it's also a body on the battlefield to help protect from people that are playing the big green stompy creatures and the mono red aggro type stuff that might be coming your way. So it's another blocker once it's done its tutor effect. So yeah, these are some spells that I really did consider putting into the deck. I put most of them in actually, and then took them out due to either cost or slot compression of wanting to make sure I could cast those instant sorceries consistently to get that storm count higher. So there we have it. That's the deck in its entirety. I had an absolute blast building this deck, thinking about all the different things we could do. You will notice as well there is no combos within the deck. I tried to put no infinite win combos in here to make sure that this deck stayed as casual as possible. With Storm being such a strong commander, I wanted to make sure I kept it definitely on the casual level and not going into that pub stompy range, you know. So yeah, absolutely fantastic deck. You're going to cast loads of spells, you're going to draw loads of cards, you're going to deal a bunch of damage. What's not to love? Take a bunch of extra turns. Yeah, just be mindful of your opponents, like I said, because you're going to dominate the playtime. And anyway, yeah, if you made it this far, consider hitting the like, drop a comment, even subscribe. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Roll on, Captain America.